call this meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There was a couple changes to the agenda. There was add-ons, so it'd be 7G, HRA, Executive Director, New Business, Craft Drive intersection. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Open forum. I just checking if anybody wants to speak at the open forum.
I could just put a plug in for the movie Sound of Freedom, playing at Main Street in Sauk Center right now. It's about the trafficking of children. It's about the trafficking of children and how massive a problem it is, especially in this country with the border stuff going on. And yeah, if you have a chance, go see it. So
I would concur with you. I did see that movie too, and it was pretty emotional. So I'd agree. Anybody else? All right. Consent agenda, approval of the minutes, bills, purchase orders. There's a couple resolutions. There was a resolution number 2023-37 of $500 from the Holding Ford Fire Relief Association to the Melrose Ambulance. Resolution number 2023-38, $250 from Melrose Electric to the Melrose Ambulance. Resolution number 2023-39, a donation of $250 from Kramer Lumber Company to the Melrose Ambulance. And then resolution number 2023-40, a donation of $500 from the Albany Chrysler Center to the Melrose Ambulance. We'd just like to thank them for helping us with our ambulance department, keeping it vibrant and with all the needs of the people. So thank everybody. There was a pay app number 2 from Molitor Excavating. Allied Inc. pay app number 1, final 2023 seal coat project. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We have a presentation from Eric Simonson from the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. Welcome to Melrose, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors, staff. My name is Eric Simonson, and I am a lobbyist with the law firm Clarity and Hood. We represent the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, which is what I'm here to talk about tonight. based on the difference between the property tax levy and what the statute or what the formula says that you could and should be collecting, that space in the middle is the unmet need. Your unmet need is about $2.6 million now, given the change in the formula. So you've got a lot of room for growth there, should we get additional dollars put on the formula. Our bonding bill, I'm just going to jump in.
thanks for the work you do.
Yeah, thanks for your hard work for our area, instead of pampering the cities all the time. We appreciate it very much.
The right city.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep, have a safe trip home. All right, it is 6:25. We are on 5, public hearing. Public hearing on interim ordinance prohibiting the operation of cannabis businesses in Melrose.
Yeah, in your action items, we had discussed this a little briefly at the last meeting of the new state cannabis law. One of local authority of the preserve is in
So since it's a public hearing, if anybody would like to speak about the proposal, you have this time to talk. Feel free to come up. All right, it's 6:30. We'll close the meeting and we'll take action on it in just a little bit. We will be on the reports. We'll just have to try to speak a little fast because one of the council members does have to leave and we gotta vote on those action items here in a little bit, so.
Yeah, we have stuff. June 2023 in our traffic area, we had 9 citations, 20 verbal warnings, 2 written warnings. For 2023, 232 calls for customer service. Last year was 301. We ended up last year 1610, last year was 1722, so we have a downward trend of 112 calls overall for the year. 27 agency assist, pretty in line with what we normally are doing. I was hoping to have squad quotes available for you. Because Ford and the other manufacturers are so far behind with previous year builds, they will not be quoting any vehicles until October, so hopefully in October I'll have some numbers to bring forward for the 24 replacement. And as previously stated in numerous meetings and probably many to come, our 22 squad is not being built yet either. So we'll all be celebrating the day that happens. One thing for the public I'd like to remind everybody about, or make an invitation for, Farmers Market day or week is in August, on August 2nd. The city of Melrose will be hosting the event, as well as ourselves, along with other public safety, will be there like we did last year. We're going around 19 night and National Night Out, and we're going to just partner with the Farmers Market and the Chamber. Seems to be a much more vibrant event, as well as National Night Out would have been on a Tuesday and Wednesday would be this event, so it just makes sense for us to work together. That is the second on a Wednesday from 3 until 6. So public safety will be there, as well as everything else the Farmers Market brings. Has been coming and been growing to quite the event every Wednesday night, Wednesday over there. So it's good to see. So keep that in mind and put that in the calendars and work from there.
Okay.
Craig, I was just wondering about the speed signs. I noticed the one by the hospital wasn't working, at least it didn't when I came in town one day.
It has been working and it hasn't been working, so I don't know if the battery's going bad on that. It's been there for a few years, so it might get tired. The one up on 5th Street North, we've had issues with that one on since we installed it. So we might just have to pull them down and take a look at it.
Okay. I just didn't know if any of them were still under warranty or what the warranty.
It's kind of once it hits the ground here, you get about a 30-minute warranty. But I called about the one on the north side that we put it up and within a week it wasn't working. They emmed hot and they kind of don't finish the product pretty well. When it works, it's great.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll pull it down and look at it when everybody gets caught up in their products and we can do that on our own. So,
Okay.
anything else?
I just want to say thank you, Matt McDonald, retired from the police department, started a new career, and just want to thank him for all his years of service to the community, and appreciated him very much. Great. Thanks, Chief. Scott.
You have my written report, I identified a number of items I've been working on, all of which will be appearing in the action items later in the meeting. So unless you have any specific questions now, I will leave till then.
All right, thank you. Finance Director, Mr. Meyer.
Should all receive first quarter reports. If you have any specific questions on those, you just gotta let me know. I just was gonna highlight a few things. Once we look at general fund revenues, taxes right now are at zero. We did collect those from the county in June, July, and then December. That's why they're at zero currently in the first quarter. One important thing to note, investment income. It's the first time it's been positive since 2001. So we're finally making money on the money we have set aside. Otherwise, everything's sitting pretty good. MATA, there's not a whole lot of action right now. You'll notice that there is a decrease in professional services. This is because we used to contract with Tracy Ryan to do a lot of our development things, but now we have a community development director that does all that for us. Otherwise, calls for fire police are pretty consistent with what they've been in the past. And everything's running well. I hope to get you second quarter numbers soon. Any questions so far?
Thanks, Ryan, appreciate it. Community Development Director, Sheila.
You have my written report also. I just want to invite everyone to check out the campground, which is now open down in the park. Tent sites will be open now this weekend because they've backfilled for the restroom. There's a lot of auction items coming up, as was discussed, so we'll talk about that. An update on Granite City on the Railroad West project. They have called me today. They would like to set up a pre-construction meeting ready for mid-August, which means the pre-construction meeting will happen before the closing, because the closing is set for August 28th, so they are ready to go. They are bidding right now. I know there are local contractors currently bidding for those, the 73-unit apartment building. An update on Quick Trip. They have run into some challenges with their soil. Not a surprise. But what that is doing is delaying the actual store construction slightly. They will be moving forward and putting in the canopies and the gas pumps, both for diesel and for the regular gas, but you are going to see a delay on the actual store construction. It will now not open until late February, first week of March, as they continue to deal with their soil challenges. But other places on the site, they are going to continue going forward with the pylon signs and with the gas pumps. But we are going to see a delay in the actual store. Melrose Area Development Authority is bringing back the rehab program for commercial properties downtown and in C2 district. So businesses who are interested in doing some exterior remodeling can talk to me about a grant program that they are going to open up. And we are really going to start pushing on the comprehensive plan. We are putting together steering committee members, and we are thankful I probably have 3 or 4 already. But we are looking for additional members. So if you have any recommendations or if anyone is interested.
Thank you, Sheila. Mr. Blummel.
All right, good evening. Again, written report for you guys. Quick updates on that. I wrote the report before I went on vacation, and everything changed with the contractor schedule that I put in the report. We did send out a letter to the people, a newsletter to the people on the project that they should have gotten to give them an update. Basically, curb and gutter ended next week, or the following week, Ford and pieces that are going to take over on Mustang Lane at 7th. We're going on pavement next week on Mustang Lane at 7th. We're doing our sub-restructuring on 8 over there. We plan on paving the first lift of pavement on August 7th, and about a week later, the second pavement. So, quite honestly, by the time we meet again, Belleville, I think the project is pretty much done. So that's what's happening with the report. As a staff, we looked at the intersection of Craft Drive and then Second over Road 13. Southeast Water Quick Trip is going. It's on the agenda later under action item, but I want to bring it up to you guys. Basically, we're looking at the turning movements on that thing to see how trucks will go around that corner. I think that's a concern with trucks driving on the sidewalk. So there are some things we can do. We're just investigating on that thing to run that again under action items later. But I think that's a good point for council discussion to share input on that. It's probably a worthwhile project based on the sort of policy. I think that's it for my list. Anything for me?
Just one, one real quick point of, I don't want to say contention, but in the past when we do like total street reconstruction, there's always we brought it up in the past that manholes the spec is what, a quarter inch?
Quarter inch low, yes.
Quarter inch low. We have multiple manholes in town that right after the new street gets put in, that they're more like a design pothole. And what I was wondering is if we could really, when we inspect these and watch the final product, that the manholes are falling within that quarter inch spec. If we could be watching that, because I think we have a lot of them, like the one in front of the fire hall, everybody swears around it. I know we brought it up when that street got redone and got overlooked. The ones on Molly's Hill, I think, are bad ones also. You're coming down, you're braking, and
Fifth Avenue going up to the school is, yeah.
so anyway, that's what people see, I think, on a new street project. Yeah, drives nice till you hit that manhole, and everybody knows it. So anyway,
Well, unfortunately, it's one of my pet peeves as well, so
Good.
that's a good thing. ultimately keeping it on auto driving is the best way of doing that.
Absolutely. Some have to be in the driving lane,
Exactly.
but,
Sometimes,
right.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Colleen?
Just to add a little bit on to what Dave was talking about as far as Craft Drive goes, the other thing that we were looking at is we would like for the county to consider putting a crosswalk in between essentially Ron's and across the street, because Quick Trip has agreed to put a sidewalk in, and our concern is for the safety of our residents, and we believe that a crosswalk there would be very beneficial. Now, typically, the county does not do crosswalks on these types of roads. In fact, the request was made by staff that they consider it, and they said no, but I just wanted it to be, I want the council to be aware of it so that when you have that discussion later on, that you guys can decide if that is something that you want to push forth with the county on. So that's the comment about Craft Drive. Electric supervisor update, we conducted interviews for the position. On Thursday, July 13th, we interviewed 3 people, and we also met with ad hoc again on the 19th. There has not been a decision made or a candidate brought forth at this time. We are currently checking on references. Police officer, we did have 2 applicants that applied. At this time, again, it's a situation where, in that case, there was an offer made, but we have given that candidate an opportunity to come back and ask questions and to give it some consideration. So that's where that's at this time. We may have to call a special we will have to call probably a special meeting of the council to appoint if that officer does elect to take that position. Meeting would last like 5 minutes, so that's all we need to look at there. Today, we had a budget retreat for staff. This is something that we started last year. This year we did it a little bit differently in that admin was in the morning and public works was in the afternoon. Extremely effective tool for our departments to come together and talk about budgets overall. In the afternoon, what's really nice is that we physically have the maps in front of us, and so every public works department is able to come out, you know, where are the not transformers, but where are the boxes in the way, and where is this, where is that? So it's just, it's a good approach, we feel, to that. We spent a great deal of time today in both sessions talking about workforce. As we all know, workforce is a huge challenge, whether it's in our field or in the private sector. And so we are just trying to brainstorm as to ways that we can recruit people and we can retain people. So that report will be provided to both the council and the PUC ahead of when your budget meeting is in in August. We received our first year grant funding monitoring from LCCMR with no findings. In the grant world, that's a great thing. That means that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing when it comes to that grant. So that is all I have at this time, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Okay. All right. Now we are on to action items. Ordinance number 7/2023-1, an ordinance declaring a moratorium on establishments or operations of cannabis business in the city of Melrose, Minnesota. Was there any questions? I think we all see that we have to wait until the state gets their stuff together before we can start moving on this anyway, so might as well put a hold on it, not get everybody's hopes up right away, wait until we know what the state wants from us. So I would ask if someone would make a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, then we are on to B, ordinance adopting chapter 154 of the Melrose City Code, vacant building registration, official title, and summary. Did you want to talk about that?
Scott or I can.
Okay.
We've been talking about this for a long time, and it's finally coming forward to you. Just needing people who have vacant buildings in town to register them. Tell us what you're doing with them. Give us the right to inspect them. That's all we're doing. We've got several properties, and we would just like to know what the plan is, essentially.
I read through the ordinance. To me, it's a little concerning from maybe a private property owner's perspective. If you have a building, there's a lot of really, I want to go back to the old saying, hello, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. If somebody knocks on your door, but it's kind of onerous, I think, for a property owner. If somebody's in town, they own a building, they're paying the property taxes. We have other ordinances in my mind that can address nuisances. This goes right all the way down to, you have to sign this vacant building ordinance and give staff, the compliance officer, I think, who is city administrator, access to the buildings for inspections. There's all kinds of requirements in here. Then you have to come up with a property plan. General provisions of that is the plan shall comply with all applicable regulations, meet the approval of compliance official. The approval of the compliance official, that is the city administrator, shall contain a timetable regarding use or demolition of the property. Complete plan shall be submitted at the time of registration. Maintenance of the building, it goes through after the inspection, then you can write up what's being required to happen with the building. And this is obviously the city administrator or whoever's appointed to do that, probably the building official or building inspector. Plan changes, you have to notify the city. Demolition required. If a building has remained vacant for a period of 1 year and the compliance official has not approved an alternative schedule to the property plan, the city may declare the building to be a nuisance and direct the owner to demolish the building and restore the grounds. Now, I know there are probably a couple of buildings, or maybe one for sure that I know of that I think we talked about, that this might really be applicable to. But this says after 6 months you have to file a vacant property application with the city. People have buildings. They pay their taxes on them. They may not have a tenant in it for 8 months, a year long. Doesn't mean it's vacant, right? I don't know what the definition of the vacant is. That's not spelled out in here. If it's just nobody goes into it for a year, or somebody has a building there down on Main Street, or they're using it for storage. I don't know if that's for us to determine what people can and can't use their private property for. I get it, there are issues with some buildings in town. We do have other ordinances that likely address some of the issues with the buildings. This, to me, is a little bit overstepped by government. It is government, and there's a lot of snowbirds that go away for 6-8 months. And here there's something in there, they have to get their snowbird status approved by the city on an annual basis. I don't know, it seems a little high, and correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't had a public hearing on this, right? Do we need a public hearing on a pretty serious ordinance change like this?
No, I understand it is
Planning and zoning did? Okay. And I don't know what this is intended for, what building properties we have in mind that this is getting after, but to me, if there's some better understanding, better description of what buildings this is going to apply for, I'd be more open to it. But I think it might just encapsulate a lot of buildings that it's not intending to encapsulate. So I don't know I'd be okay with just tabling it till next month if we can have more discussion on it or research that more.
If it's affecting stuff that's been long-term, could you change the wording from the 6 months to?
Would you like a longer timeline?
I mean,
That would help tremendously. I think minimum a year, if not longer. Typically, if a property's actually vacant, they're not using it, they're not paying their property taxes on it. Typically, if they're not using it for something, which eventually ends up going to the county or the city eventually anyway. This will cause more properties, in my mind, to go tax forfeit. People just, they don't want to deal with this. Much less they're, whatever they're dealing with the building that they own.
I see some of your points with, like, from a rental standpoint, you could be sitting empty for a year or
Right.
18 months, and then it is occupied again. If some of the problems are 18 months or longer, then
Right.
maybe it just needs some different timelines.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I'm willing to work with it, but just put it in forethought. I mean, when you start looking at buildings that people aren't checking on them regularly, you are having, you look at an old milk house. As soon as the cows are gone, for some reason, it seems like they always crumble.
But it's,
This way,
sorry. Go ahead.
and I'm starting to look at the point where if it is, what happens if it is deteriorating and we get a fire there? How do we know that there's no squatters in there? When you look at, you know, a good chunk of firefighters that do die are in abandoned buildings in big cities. You know, our 2 to 3 to 4 story buildings, we do have to prevent stuff like that also, especially, you know, for a bad example, let's just say at the old plant. If there's some beams inside that are, you know, something fell in and we get a fire or call for help in there, if it's smoke infested and we go through and all of a sudden we fall through a floor. I mean, we have to also look at things like that. I mean, that has to be part of public safety, or if Craig has to respond to something, you have to feel a little better about it being safe for the community also. I do understand that I'm willing to dates, but I think some of these buildings should be checked a little bit more, just for the safety of other people.
Isn't there a process today that you can condemn buildings?
But do we want to take the responsibility of condemning a building quickly? I mean, I think start now while we're sort of ahead of the game, because we've had pretty much good use of all the buildings except for maybe a couple over the last 4 or 5 years.
I would assume that this would not stand up in court if somebody doesn't want to file their vacancy status with the state. You'd still end up taking them to court before you got access to it. If somebody says, I don't want to sign this document, I'm not doing this. You still have to go through the court system. It's private property, correct? But they're still going to have to contact the city and say, hey, I'm going to be gone for 6 months. Well, according to this, it does, but anyway. I'm pretty sure it said that about snowbirds.
Was that an exception?
It's an exception, but it still says their, what do you want to call it? Their exceptional status will be evaluated annually. So they, yeah, I'll find that here in just a second. I thought it said their exemption status would be evaluated annually. Right, so that's where it might be somebody could have a vacation home and stay here for 2 months out of the year during the summer months. I don't, it's one of them, it's bigger government, and I think it encapsulates, I don't care if somebody has a house and they stay in it for 2 months a year. They come for the vacation home. 90% of the homes around lakes would qualify as vacant properties then. Right. It does say, it says request for snowbird exemption will be considered annually with proper verification. So, what is proper verification? What is that? I mean, you get a lot of retirees that don't know that this is getting passed, number one. They're living in Melrose. And I probably should have just called them and told them to come up and sit in on the meeting.
I don't know too many snowbirds that are gone more than 7 months or 8 months.
Yeah, I don't know, but
And
it
sitting
says
on the-
request for snowbird exemption
and
will
sitting-
need to be verified annually, so all snowbirds.
But
Yeah.
sitting on that board, the planning and zoning board, we took that all into consideration. And
Right.
part of what we talked about is if they are gone longer, they'll notify us. They would let us, as a city, know, but basically what it's doing is it's just nipping things in the bud. If they're gone longer, then do we have cause of concern? Did something happen to the family? Can we figure out who is taking care of their property while they're gone? And find out if there's something that we as a city can help them with. So,
Right. And I understand, we have some problematic properties in town. I just don't know that we should, and I know planning and zoning went through it, but if we could just work on fine tuning a little bit on what properties we want this to apply to. Because I know we know which ones, but I don't know that you need somebody that is actually using their property for something other than what you think it should be, but it appears to be vacant, and now they're going to be required to file vacant status with the city. And come up with a property management plan and allow access by city staff to go and inspect it and make sure the toilet's not leaking and stuff, or the faucet's dripping.
I'm not on board with making it that tight. I mean, you always want to leave yourself some gray room in case if there is a heavy need for something. I don't like to impede either, but how many of these places do you go into in a day?
In a day?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure you go into a lot of places.
I go in a lot of places where,
Those aren't vacant, right?
you're right.
But they're pretty rough. I'm sure some of them are kind of
Yeah.
rough. Yeah,
So on the ones that aren't taken care of,
yeah.
you look at mold, I mean, you look at everything. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, and you should be, concerned about it. I know a house in town.
I don't know
that's-
that we need to be concerned about mold in people's houses. If they're living that way, that's their choice.
Yeah, that is, you're right. But if, you have to expose other people to it, is it fair?
Well, it's probably a little different if it's somebody's taking advantage of some renters and not taking care of the property. That's probably a little different. But on that note, renters have rights also. They can make claims against their landlord also, so.
Yeah, and
I don't
there's-
know.
And there are poor souls that don't have that
Can we?
feeling to do it either.
Yeah. Could we table this until next month? Just to work on this a little bit. A month isn't gonna hurt anything.
Guess I'm fine with that.
We've had buildings sitting empty for 10 years in town. We don't suddenly just need to dump this on the public and say, yep, it's a done deal.
Right.
Now it's gonna be in the paper. People will give us feedback, whether they think it's good or not. I'm sure I'll get some phone calls on it. Maybe he'll tell me I'm crazy and just pass it, be done with it. But,
Guess I wouldn't mind the phone calls either.
right,
I want to know.
I'll make a motion to table it.
I think we can just do it as a consensus.
Can we do that? Okay.
I'd rather do that. I guess that's what you all like. Okay.
I gotta run.
Appreciate you listening.
No problem. All right, so B, we just tabled. So the council to give consideration approving official title and summary for the ordinance, 7/20/2023. So we're gonna table that one also. Okay. Now we're on to, building moves. Right?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
let Scott take this one.
Yeah.
Or we have in our zoning ordinance, have regulations for new buildings and structures.
Can you speak up?
Yeah.
You're very hard to hear.
So, yeah, we have had regulations in our zoning ordinance, basically requiring people to get permits for moving buildings in and out of the city of Melrose. Most of these changes are coming out of the experience with the litigation we had with Rose Park, with moving in a structure without a permit. And so the changes are trying to address, we're in the course of litigating, it's like, okay, yeah, we can back this up, we can make this clear, there were some parts I thought that when it came to apply it, could be clearer. Some of that's just restructuring the reformat, and then some of it is making it clear what the expectations are, and distinguishing, because the expectations change on based on if it's a traditional structure, if it's just a shed, or if it's a manufacturing. We're trying to break that out, hoping to making it easier for the staff to apply when someone comes in for a permit, and making it easier for the public to understand what's expected. That's what generated this, is trying to clarify and do a better job based on experience in the last couple of years, where moving regulations are doing it on one set,
Okay. And I guess I didn't see it, does it have like where you need the title for it? It's all in there, so everybody hears, you need that title for that.
That was kind of one of the arguments, is that, what we were requiring for title evidence, what they were willing to provide for two different things. And the prior language just said evidence of title, so now we're specifying what is accepted, what you have to provide as evidence of title.
Okay. Nope, I'm okay with it. Is there any questions on this?
No.
All right, so the council will give consideration approving the official title and summary for ordinance number 7/20/2023-3.
You have to do this separately.
Okay, all right, so 7/20/2023-3, right? Okay, regulation, building moves. Can I get a motion to approve? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And then, summary of ordinance 7/20/2023-3. Ordinance.
It's a 9-page ordinance, and so the summary is trying to boil it down to about a page and a half. When the council has to separately approve the summary for publication.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, 2023 active transportation sidewalk.
for the sidewalk on the north side of connecting Daylight Court to the trail crossing connecting to the school. We'll make sure we're talking about that. This is not a safe versus school, but it's on school property. It's the one we're talking about for a while. So the plans are ready to go. They're going to submit that probably tomorrow morning. And as soon as BidNet gives a thumbs up the bid, we'd like your guys' operation to as well. Grants for the project. Hopefully the bids come in nice and we will get your approval on it.
Perfect. So, council to consider authorizing the advertising for bids for the county road 168 5th Street Northeast sidewalk, contingent on the MnDOT state aid approval. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Did we get approval that the school is gonna be taking care of this?
They are going to be looking at it at their meeting Monday night for approval of a memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
And then I'll come back to you guys just for signature as well.
Okay.
So, are you second then?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Basketball court, north of fire station, concrete work bid. Was there any questions for anybody on that one?
Was everything good on there, Gary? I mean, we're assuming the lowest bid.
Right. Are they taking out any of the curb by the fire station, or is it just replacing? Okay, just doing flat work. Okay. Yeah, can I get a motion to approve it?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Well, we need to pick, there's two bids that were put
Oh.
in, things that wasn't a part of the.
Yeah, you got approval.
Okay.
Gary, I think you would speak to the low bidder.
Yeah.
Boarding masonry was a little bit.
Yeah.
They were pretty much close to the same on the fireworks. I think Wayne, they're going one.
And what's their timeline on?
I did not talk to them about timeline, but I imagine it's going to be this year. They're also doing the bathroom and the soccer park.
Oh, okay.
$1,605. Yeah.
For Boyding.
I'll keep that motion.
Oh.
for Boyd.
I'll second that.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Okay, first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. And then, fire department, volunteer fire department, policies. I guess, did you guys go through that, Justin, at the relief meeting?
Didn't make it to the relief meeting, so.
Okay. And I believe there was really no opposition against it from the department members. So looking for approval to, for the revisions. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. And then, oh, okay, G, HRA Executive Director Ernie, you want to come up?
Good evening, Council. For you that do not know who I am, Ernie Kitchen, I'm the HR Aid Director for the City of Melrose. We do business as Roseview Manor. In the early 70s, the Council had the foresight to come up with a program and a plan to provide affordable housing for those that are elderly, those that have low incomes, those that suffer from disabilities, so that they have a place. It's not a huge place, but a place where they can live with dignity and with safety. And over the years, the directors that have directed the HRA have done a fabulous job. Since then, the occupancy rate for Roseview Manor has been less than 3% for all these years. They've been able to keep their within budget and also add capital funds so that they can keep the facility in the good shape that it is. For the last 12 years, I've had the honor and the privilege to be the director for the HRA. And I want to thank also the council for giving us good directors, now especially Commissioner Wheeling being added to it as part of our board of directors, but also as a representative representative for the city council. In May, I let the Board of Commissioners know that I would like to step back. It's time for me to retire. And I wanted to retire because hopefully I still have enough energy to enjoy a little bit of retirement. So with that being said, then the Board of Commissioners then set up a search, put out the qualifications, start looking for directors, and we've advertised it, and we have posted. At the end of June, we had a couple of them that, a couple of candidates that came and applied. We interviewed them on July 10th. And based on the qualifications and criteria that was, we thought was very important, commissioners thought was very important that they made a decision, and about a week ago then, they have sent their recommendations for city approval and council. So with that, I'd like to know if you have any questions.
No, enjoy retirement.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing
Have
that.
fun. Yeah,
Thank you.
well, good. Thank you, Ernie.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ernie.
All right, on to new business. Fire remediation funds.
We have to
Oh, you
make
need
a
next
motion.
item.
Oh, action, yeah, there's, okay.
So I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried.
Thank you, council.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Ernie.
Enjoy retirement.
All right, sorry, new business, fire remediation funds.
Ask Ryan's help a little bit on this one. At the 2021 first special session of the Minnesota Legislature, it appropriated the fire remediation funds to the city of Melrose for the redevelopment after the September 8th, 2016 fire on the 400 block. As part of the agreements that we have been working out with Riverside Development Group, the city agreed to provide these fire remediation funds to the developer of the former craft lot. They have provided sufficient documentation. Ryan has reviewed it, is happy with their submission, that they have expended more than that amount of money on their project next door. So that we're asking the council to authorize city staff to remit to Riverside Development Group the fire remediation funds. Do you have the exact dollar now?
$643,000.
Even. So I have on your packet, 643,729. It is actually 643 even.
Okay. Is there any questions? Basically, did you want to just give a really, we do have a new person here where the money came from. Can you just let them know?
Yeah, after the fire, the legislature appropriated this money to basically help Melrose revitalize after the fire. And because of the vicinity between the craft lot and 400 block, it was determined that the craft lot site would be a good use of these funds. And that was part of the development agreement with Riverside Development Group. And we were over there today. They are digging. I think they really only have the elevator shaft left to dig, and then they'll start on their footings.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Sheila. Council to consider authorizing city staff to remit to the Riverside Development Group the $643,000 in fire remediation funds appropriated to the city for redevelopment. Can I get a motion to approve?
Make a motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. All right. So we have a budget meeting, and it's looking for August 24th at 5:30.
Yes.
Is there any questions or concerns? All right, we'll make that work. And so now Craft Drive intersection, who wants to visit with that one?
All right, basically looking for council input tonight on something, if you guys would like to pursue changing that radius in some of these quadrants of Craft Drive. Hey, look, there's a pretty picture up there.
Go ahead.
So this is zoomed in, got a little pixelated on here. As we look at it, the red lines are actually the rear tires of a truck. So this is the turning movements of a truck. So as you can see, the standard 53-foot semi-box is going down Craft Drive as it is now. Rear wheels are on the back side of the sidewalk if it stays in the truck. But the question was, with Quick Trip building over here, potential having more pedestrians there, is it in our best interest to move that curb line back and move the sidewalk back to get it so that hopefully the trucks stay on the pavement? We're also concerned about additional stacking on Craft Drive to turn onto 2013 once Quick Trip's open. We're going to put more vehicles there. Oftentimes right now semis take the liberty of using some of the other side of the road as well. That won't be an option in the future with the with additional vehicles stacked there, most likely anyway. So again, it's about a $60,000 effort to move that, remove pedestrian ramp, move it back 10 feet, grading and all that stuff associated with it. So with council approval, we obviously would get it tacked onto the current project, contract we have in town. Have not approached it, we wouldn't have enough council.
Is 10 feet enough with the oversized loads that could potentially be coming through?
With oversized loads, I don't think we want to plan for more than that. I'm afraid of getting into Quick Trip's pond and outside of our road right away. So I think 10 feet is about right what it's going to take. What you see there is about 6 feet, so we're going up a few feet past.
Okay.
So it's probably not going to handle a more length load. You know, if we have a wind turbine or something coming through it, they're going to have to still close the intersection.
Okay.
I think for the day-to-day operation, it's really going to improve.
I would agree.
It's a majority of tanker trucks anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly.
I've met with Quick Trip, and they are fine.
Okay.
They are good with it, and they still did get approval, and they've already built up that right-hand entrance for the road.
See that? I think it should be done, be a better good for the community.
Where was the crosswalk recommended?
Well, if you can see on
Yeah,
there.
I'm not tall enough for that, but if you see by the number 1 up there, that's the crosswalk we'd like to request from the county, cross 13 at that point.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not 100% confident we'll get it with the resident ask, but with the council support, it's certainly a strong ask.
Yeah.
Staff did explore other options to get people to this intersection, including some sidewalk improvements for half a block in front of what's called Old Pieces. So there are other options should the county decide they don't want us to do the crosswalk location. But either way, I think staff's concern regarding pedestrian traffic wanting to utilize Quick Trip is real.
I would agree.
And Quick Trip has agreed to put this sidewalk in.
Yeah, so they have agreed to take a sidewalk pretty much from the corner where the new bed ramp will be, kind of kid corner straight to the store. So that's the road everyone's going to take in the summer, whether we put a sidewalk there or not. So let's just put one in that.
I agree. All right, council, I would recommend that we approve this.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried for it. Thank you. I was just wondering if I can just go through the informational items before we get into the unfinished business. I'll make it real quick. It's just informational items was utility commission meeting minutes, streets park supervisor recognition. Thank you, Gary, for all your years of service. We appreciate you here. Schools and conferences. And now we'll just go on to the unfinished business assignment, Granite City Real Estate LLC to GCRE Melrose LLC.
Yeah, this one's pretty straightforward. Granite City Real Estate LLC is the larger company in St. Cloud that runs their property management firm. They have established with the state of Minnesota a separate entity just to hold the real estate in Melrose, to keep it separate from their property management company. So what we're asking for from the council tonight is an assignment of the agreements that we have reached with them, signing the rights in the agreements to their new company called GCRE-Melrose LLC, which will be the entity which will take title to the property.
You need a motion? I'll make that.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next item is a purchase development agreement, which we need to hold a closed session with. So otherwise, everything else was covered on the council agenda. So